Hello there, how are you doing? Now in this video, we're going to cover the visibility types, okay? So the private, protected, and public, all right? So let me make one more class here. So let me make it, let's call it customer. So bookstore would have books and customers, right? So let's create customer.php, okay? Okay, so I have added some comments here just to make sure that you get it 100%. Okay, so we have three types of visibility. So private is the most strict one, top level, and then there is a protected, and then there is public. All right, so let's go through all of them. So the private visibility means that the properties and methods of the class cannot be accessed by outside. Okay, so just like the name suggests, it's private to that class itself. Okay, it's not, this code is not accessible to the outside. Okay, so that's private, pretty straightforward. Now protected, what is protected? The protected visibility means that the properties and methods of the class can be accessed only by its children class. Okay, so we're going to see that in action in the future lessons. Okay, so what happens is one class can be extended by another class. So in that situation it is called parent and child class. Okay, so even it's called class and subclass as well. So parent and child makes it a bit more understandable, I think. So protected means you have one class, for example you have a customer, and then maybe we will have later down the road two types of customer. One will be a basic customer, another will be a premium type of customer. So both of them will inherit a certain properties and methods of the customer. For example, customer name, address, and so on, things like that. Maybe those properties methods would be mm, usable in both basic and premium classes, right? So in that situation what would happen is those basic or premium class would extend the parent class. Okay, so when something like that happens, in that situation, even if you declared the properties and methods as protected, they will be accessible to the children classes, the one that extends. So you will see this in action. Okay, so it's pretty shouldn't be too complicated to understand. Okay? It's a private is private for the class itself. It's not going out anywhere. Protected is not totally like public. Now let's go to the public. Actually, public visibility means that the properties and methods to the class can be accessed by outside. So okay, so that's public just by the name it suggests. Public, it is accessible. Private, it is completely to the class. However, protected is kind of sits in the middle. It is not public, it is not fully private, it is protected. Means any other class, if they extend to the parent class, then those class will have access. Okay, it's pretty straightforward. Now lots of theory. So let me comment this, take this away, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to let's create a customer class. Begin by the class keyword customer. Within these curly braces we define the properties and methods. Okay, so this time we're going to have, before we had all these public properties, now this time we're going to try private. Okay, because customer details such as ID and name, probably it makes more sense to make it private than public, right? So private ID. Okay, private, what else they will have, first name. Okay, private surname, and then let's have email as well. Okay, so we have these four properties. Private, now let's have one function as well. Public, let's make it public. public function, this is going to be a constructor so that we can instance it easily, right? Construct, and it will take the ID, it will take the first name, it will take the surname and the email. Okay, and then just like we did earlier, this set ID equals to ID. Again, now let's do the same for first name. First name, let's make it first name, surname, whatever comes from the argument we set. Okay, email, awesome. So now we have another class, it has private properties. Now let's give it a try. Why don't we try it now? Instead of trying it inside the class, which we shouldn't do anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this out. Okay, this is how we instance it. Copy this one, and let's leave the class as is, nice and clean. Save, customer, nice and clean, save. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a new file, init.php. Okay, and we're going to do all the instantiation from there. Okay, so it's always a good idea to keep the classes clean. Okay, so let's make it init.php, and let me save this one. Awesome. So this is our directory. Okay, pretty clean. Okay, so init.php, let me paste that bit I copied from there. Make sure you type php. Alright. Okay, so how does it work? Because we need to require those files here, right? This init doesn't know. It cannot instance it like so. If you go to init php, class book not found and all that stuff. So let's do that. Let's bring, so what we can do is we can require. Okay, so let's require classes. So require once, okay, and then we give the directory, okay, directory, and then we concatenate. So it's from the same directory, and we concatenate and give the class name. So directory slash book.php. All right, it's in the same directory, and it's a book.php. Now we can do the same for customer. Awesome. Okay, so we require these two classes. Now we have instantiated a book. Now why don't we instantiate a customer as well? Okay, so let's name it first customer equals to new customer. Okay, now we can pass in the arguments. Okay, so the customer takes the ID, let's set it to 1. Customer takes the first name, Ryan, okay, and then the surname, give it surname, and then email, right? Okay, make sure it is a string. Okay, great. So we have the first customer, we have instantiated the book, we have instantiated the customer. Now because the customer's properties are set to private, books are not. So let's give it a try. Why don't we do, let's use var dump back. Okay, var dump Harry Potter, var dump first customer. In fact, let me comment this out, it's going to be a mess. Okay, let's save this one, Harry Potter. We can see undefined variable surname. On customer line 12. It's the spelling. Okay, let's save this one. Let's try it. Yeah, okay, we get the book object, there's the title, all that stuff. Great. Now let's have a look at the customer. Save this one. Okay, so we got the customer object, the integer 1, first name Ryan, surname Dungyo, and email, all that stuff. Okay, it's working fine. But what if we try to access, let's say, our first name? We know the first name is set to private, so let's see if we can access it. Refresh. On-cut error. Cannot access private property. Customer first name. You see? That is how it works. Okay. So let me comment this out. Go back to this one. Pardon Harry Potter. And Harry Potter, what does it have? With this book, let's try to get its title because it's set to public, which should be fine. Okay, so let's give it a try. Harry Potter and the Magician. So you see the difference? When you set it to public, it can be easily accessible by the code outside, but if it is set to private, you cannot do that. Okay, so that is a very, very basic example of understanding private and public. Okay, so this is all for public and private, and protected we're going to cover in the coming lessons when the time comes, when the time is appropriate. That time I will introduce you to the protected type as well. Okay, so I'll see you in the very next video. Thank you. Hello there, how are you doing? Now in this video we're going to learn about encapsulation, accessors, and mutators. Okay, so all these terms are used in frameworks like Laravel as well. So this knowledge you learn here will be super useful when you're learning Laravel. Okay, so talking about encapsulation, what is it? Okay, so private visibility is great to maintain the internal structure of your classes, right? As a developer, you can change the internal structure without affecting the external code. And what I mean by this is I'll show you in the example. Okay, so don't worry. So for example, other classes that extends it, I was talking about it earlier too, which we haven't covered yet. A child class can extend parent class. Okay, so that's coming later. So how do we read or change these private properties or methods from outside or from other classes? Okay, so that's the main point. So encapsulation, and that's what we're trying to understand here. Encapsulate. For example, this method we created earlier, it has private set, all these properties set to private. However, we need to access these methods from outside, otherwise it doesn't make much sense. In most cases we need, but we don't want them to give direct access. We give them access but not direct access. Okay, so they can just say first name, they can do that, but what we can do is we can set accessors or mutators. Okay, these are simply methods. Okay, it's like getters and setters. Okay, we can do so using getters and setters. These methods are also known as accessors and mutators. Okay, so let's see them in action. At the moment, the customer, we had the error, right? When you try to get the first name, we got the error. But let's say our application needs this functionality. We need that, and we also want to maintain the internal structure as private. We don't want to change that. We don't want to change that to public. So what's the solution? So that is what encapsulation is all about. Okay, so we're going to set these accessors and mutators. Okay, so let's begin by this solution. We need the first name. So how do we do that? So let's go to customer.php, and we're going to create some method, some accessor getter method. Okay, so right after this construct, let's create a function, accessor function. Okay, so function, let's make it public function, and we name it get first name. Okay, because we want to get the name. right? So this function, what it will do is it will return, you guessed it, this first name. See that it is private, however we have this public function, and this one will return the first name. Now this has access to the properties and methods, so it works. So see that we can still maintain our internal structure, we don't change it. Sometimes we might need this and that other things which you will see in the very next exercise. So let's not talk about that, let's just do that. Get first name, return the first name. Okay, we can do the same with the surname as well. Okay? Get surname, this surname. Okay, now let's give it a try. Let me comment this out. Var dump first customer first name. Before we had error, now let's see. Now in fact get first name, this should be get first name. Okay, refresh. Right, awesome. So now it works. Even though the first name is set to private, however, because of this access method, we can access. That's awesome. So this is encapsulation. Okay, you encapsulate the code. You maintain the internal structure and you provide these accessors and mutators. The whole point is, what if let's say we decided that we want this full name method. Okay, let's say we want to have a full name functionality instead of first name and last name. We want to have a full name. Now just for that, instead of changing the internal structure, what you can do is you can simply create another accessor method and provide, just concat the first name and last name. We already have it. Let's not modify the internal structure, but all they want is the full name, so I can create another method. So that is the whole point. It helps developer to maintain the internal structure. Now every time you need this, you need that, and in that case going and directly modifying the class properties methods, that becomes a mess and it's hard to maintain over time. So as you can see, it's a broad concept. So if they want full name, instead of creating another property called full name here and just modifying the internal structure, what we do is we just create another access function. Okay, so that's the whole point. Public function get full name, and we simply return. So what we can do is we can say this first name, and then we can concatenate, make space, concatenate this surname. Awesome, beautiful. Now get full name. Let's try. We don't want first name, we want full name. Let's see. Awesome, right? Now you can do so much more in real life. For example, let's say we want all these letters to be uppercase. Let's wrap them in str to upper. Okay, so you can apply a lot of logic, do all sorts of things, but internal structure stays the same. So it's better approach, as you can see. So this is the benefit. This is how we apply encapsulation. Okay, now we can do some more. Methods. In fact, let's do it. They're fun. Public. Let's do get email, and set email. Okay, so because so far we only looked at the accessor, I want to show you the mutator as well, also known as setter. Getter, setter, or accessor mutators. Okay, so public function, let's call this get email. Okay, return this email. Okay, and now let's copy. This one will be set email. Okay, so how we set email? We take the argument email. We can even specify type in string. Let's say we want to make sure it's string that we're getting, and then instead of return, what we do is this email we set to the incoming email that is coming from the argument. Awesome. Okay, so we have the getters, we have the setters, and these are getters, access. Okay, that's awesome. Now in init.php we can get the full name, we can set the email. In fact, let's get the email and see first. Get email. Okay, we have the email ryan@colorado.com. that is how we instantiate. For example, let's say we want to modify it. What we can do is we can set email, because we have that method set email, and then we can pass in the new email, right? ryan@yahoo.com. Okay, we can set that, and after setting, let's see if it changes. Okay, so just copy that, get email again. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so before it was Ryan, and then it set, we set the new email, so now we see ryan@yahoo.com. so as you can see, we can not only access but we can set as well. Awesome, right? This is how we use encapsulation. You provide getters and setters so that the private stays private, and is still the code outside of this class can access the properties and methods. Okay, now in the next video we're going to learn about static properties and methods. Okay, so I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.